This program is brought to you by the Genesis Communications Network, a world leader in talk radio since 1998. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Broadcasting and streaming live all across America. This is HomeTalkUSA with Michael King, where we will discuss topics pertaining to your home with industry-leading experts. Michael King is a licensed general contractor with more than 30 years of experience in home improvements and the author of Contracting with the King. Join us this hour for our segment Invent America with your co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton. Discover what's next in the home improvement industry and explore new products and innovations. Or if you have that next great big idea, learn what it takes to bring your invention to the world as Michael King and Rita Crompton talk to America's inventors and innovators. Remember, the America of tomorrow is being invented today. We invite you to visit us at HomeTalkUSA.com. One of the best resources for home improvement information around today. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com. And now, we proudly present Invent America from the #1 home improvement radio program in the country, Home Talk USA, with your host, the Cajun contractor, Michael King, and his co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton.
Welcome, America. That's right. Don't forget, we are streaming live on the Genesis Communication Radio Network at GCNlive.com. This is the Invent America segment of Home Talk USA, where we talk to up-and-coming inventors, and pretty much it's an educational hour where we can help if you have an idea on a new product or technology and you need some help to try to figure out how you can basically get it to market, the whole process. And that's what we do here each week and every week. And now I'd like to welcome to the show my co-host and my sidekick. Well, they call her the Inventor Lady herself, Miss Rita Crompton. Rita, welcome. How you doing? How you been this week?
It has been a wonderful week. I've been cheating. I've had my grandsons here, so we have floated down the river and, gone hiking up the mountain and done all kinds of crazy things.
Well, and again, next week, I already made an announcement that you're going to kind of be filling in for me next week. I will be calling in. My grandson, who's a pretty good baseball player, has been invited to the LSU baseball camp next week. So I'm going to be out there and have fun with my grandchild. So it's a summer, and hey, we want to have time for our family, and that's what it's all about, right, Rita?
That's absolutely right. It's like last week we had on two young ladies. One was in the 5th grade going into 6th grade, and the other one was just getting started in high school. I think she was 16, and they were amazing. And it's summertime, so we have these young ladies on and these young innovators on during the summertime. Gotta love the summer.
Well, I'll tell you what. Now, what do you want to talk about? I think you want to discuss the challenges of product names. So explain what that means.
People will give me names of a product and I'm thinking, you really need to try again. Apple paid a lot of money to teach people that an apple is something that you play with or work on instead of something that you eat. And most inventors don't have millions of dollars to make that kind of educational transition. So we've got to be smarter about the way we name a product. So our two guests today that are on, they did the exercise. And I always tell inventors, it's like, get a group of friends over and family, sit around the table and say, what would you Google to find this product? And so you've got to have, a good name for it, but it can't be something that is a made-up spelling because nobody can read your mind. Nobody knows it's there.
Yeah, you might as well use the search engines to really help you out, and that's what the search engine's for. When you type in information in the search engine, it's trying to find it somewhere, and that's the
exactly
point. It's got to look for it somewhere.
Exactly. So we had some guys years ago, they had a new fishing jigger, and they just felt adamant that the word jigger had to be into it because fishermen know what a jigger is. And so they put EZ in front of it, easy jigger, and lo and behold, they got the trademark on it. Yep. So, there's ways to be creative about, the name you want on your product that allows someone to Google it to find it, but still has the imagination part of it so it can get through the trademark office.
And it kind of helps to have some professional help, and that's what you're going to discuss, and why that's so important to try to figure out a name for your product. And usually, unfortunately, that usually comes at the end of the process when you should kind of work on this at the beginning of the process, right?
At the end of the process when they're out of money. And that's why it's so hard and so important that, we talk about those things. And it's like, give me a name to work with. Let's start calling it something. And so a lot of times that's a really good exercise that early on we start, everyone's like, no, a few months into it, well, I don't really like that. Let's try this. And so it gives us time to work on it instead of saying, oh, my God, I've got to have something I can file a trademark on tomorrow. That is more challenging. And, sometimes the tagline works real well. So you've got the name you want, which might be an odd spelling. But we had some guys that use the word tag-a-beaner for a dog tag holder. Well, tag-a-beaner, nobody's going to Google tag-a-beaner to come up with a dog tag holder, but they got the byline then, dog tag holder, and got the .com for that. And so when somebody would say Google dog tag holder, it would go to tag-a-beaner. So there are ways to work the words, but you've got to be able to see how it all flows together these days. Let's
give a brief on our guest today. You have David Klapatch, right? What does he do?
David Klapatch, he comes from a family of inventors. It's absolutely amazing. Had some really good success with an earlier product, and so now we're talking about his next product. He's just filed the patent. He will be going to the National Hardware Show with us this year. But it's a way of, I'm not going to tell. I'm going to let him tell it because it's a very cool product. We had some reviews done on this product, and it's like, how fast can we get this? And it could be used from anything from a bike, a mountain bike, to a semi. It's really cool. And I love those inventions that cross so many different industries. Andy Markelz, he is also from a family of inventors. He's got a product called Collar Keeper. He was a winner of our Retailer's Choice Award 3 years ago.
Wow.
At the National Hardware Show. But again, one of those ones where they just were really smart about the way they picked the words for their product. And that's what you've got to do these days is, you've got to be able to look at what is social media going to grab and what do people put into Google to find a product that's going to solve the problem they have. And when you start cutting it down then, it gives you then some momentum in naming the product without having to spend a fortune to educate the American public about the weird spelling of a name you picked.
Wow. So you got a jam-packed show today for us, huh?
We do. And then we've got Michael Miller, our expert, our show expert and product expert, is going to, pose it up with us. And he's going to talk about, all these products that he's seen over 2 decades of, the ones that made sense and the ones that didn't make so much sense.
Yeah, I always enjoyed having Michael on the show. He's a good guest, with a lot of experience.
He is. He's a wonderful asset that we have. It's just, he brings a different perspective to it because he's been in the marketplace and he's been in the big marketplace with Home Depot and with Danco. So he's got a lot of good insight for inventors. It's amazing how, when I'm talking to him, how often we are on exactly the same page. It's like, I know, I agree with you. So we've become, good allies and good friends over, the 20 years that we've both been doing this. And I appreciate all of his insight for our inventors from that store perspective that, when you look down, it was like, when I had somebody said, all right, well, we want the inventors in this focus group to pick your favorite color.
All right.
And so the guys had brought a whole bunch of colors, and, everybody wrote down on the questionnaire black or gray, and everybody picked yellow walking out the door.
Well, Rita, we got to run right quick up against the clock. We're going to come back with our first guest. Stay tuned right here This is Home Talk USA radio program, the Invent America part of our show. We're going to come back with another guest, another topic, along with my sidekick, Rita Crompton, the Inventor Lady herself. I'm the Cajun Man. We'll be right back. Yay!
Home Talk USA with Michael King. Do you have questions about your next home improvement project or home repairs? Now you can chat with verified home repair and home improvement experts in just minutes. Get the help you need by visiting HomeTalkUSA.com. One of the best resources for home improvement information around today. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com. And now, back to Invent America from the #1 home improvement radio program in the country. Home Talk USA with your host, the Cajun contractor Michael King, and his co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton.
All right, welcome back. That's right. This is the Cajun Man from the Bayou Land, the originator, not the duplicator. Please don't accept no substitutions. Rita, I was green before green was even cool.
I know you were.
But hey, I hear our guest laughing a little bit right now. But hey, why don't you introduce him, Rita?
I am happy to introduce Mr. David Klapatch. He is the inventor of the Lube Toss, and today we are talking about how to name your product. And Dave is from a long line of inventors. His father, believe it or not, invented the first hamburger press. So that's kind of cool. Been a long time. And he was the inventor of the waterless lanai cleaning in Naples, Florida. So it was allowed people to clean their lanai without disturbing and getting other units wet. David, thank you so much for joining us today. And we want to talk to you about Lube Toss. You are still fairly early on in the process. So tell our audience exactly what it is.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for inviting me to the show. And so my product is actually called Lube Toss, and I'll tell you about that name, the way it's spelled in a little while. But and it's exactly what it does. It's a device that simplifies the process of lubricating chains and cables, and then allows you to just toss away the mess. If you've ever lubricated a bike chain or a motorcycle chain, then you're very familiar with the tedious and messy job of not only lubricating it, but how to get rid of everything afterwards. With my lubricator, you simply either add the lubricant to the lubricator, wrap it around your chain, and then you squeeze it, and the pressure from squeezing it actually applies that lubricant to the chain while you're backpedaling. When you're done, you just toss it away, and hence the name Lube Toss. So,
and that's one of those things that, when you see it, there's like, I cannot believe it hasn't been done before.
It's one of those stupid, simple ideas that I hope it catches on.
Exactly. I mean, you've shown it around a lot, and people are saying, "How quick can I get my hands on this thing?"
Yeah, I've got a list of people that want copies of it. So
yeah.
I'm just waiting in the wings. Yeah, it's also available in a pre-filled applicator. As things went on, it progressed into one thing into the next, and to make it even neater, we're making a pre-filled applicator, which basically you just peel off a tab, put it on your chain, turn it, and throw the whole thing away. You never even have to add lubricant or anything to it. Has just the right amount of lubricant added. And the way it's designed, it actually, on bicycle chains and motorcycle chains, there's 2 lubrication points on the chain, especially in the case of bicycles. And those 2 lubrication points need to get that oil. And when you just drip it on with a bottle, that doesn't happen. It usually over-lubricates, and you get that big black mess all over your chain. That's from over-lubricating.
Yep.
So,
then on the receiving end of that cleanup mess. So how almost every wife has been on that end of the cleanup mess. So how did you come up with the name? That's our real focus today. This is a good name because it says exactly what it does.
I think the name's important. And That's a good question because my product's one of a kind. I needed it to stand out on the point of purchase displays in the stores. So when somebody sees 5 different lubricants, I wanted them to see the Lube and Toss where they knew that they could just toss the mess away. And but coming up with the name, as simple as it sounds, do you use an ampersand? Do you use the and word? Do you use an N in between? When I looked at the ampersand, it was my first thought because it made the most sense. But when I was experimenting with URLs, I found that the ampersand caused issues, and it didn't automatically link. That ampersand actually broke the link. So then I thought, okay, I'll put the and in there. And then I found that when people were pronouncing it, they didn't enunciate the letter D, so it sounded like Lube and Toss. So so I decided to go with the Lube and Toss. So Lube and Toss is how you pronounce it, but it's spelled Lube and the capital letter N, Toss with a capital N, rather than an ampersand sign.
Yep.
So it's
good to know because a lot of people don't know that. There's different symbols that will break the connection.
Yep. It's easier and safer to use in a URL. It easily fits onto the front of my packaging because it would probably be in 2 words, the Lube and Toss. And then if you pronounce Lube and Toss as a single word, it almost sounds German if you go Lube and Toss. But you, and you won't find it in any dictionary. And in order to trademark something, if there's words that are in a dictionary, you may not get it trademarked. So the Lube and Toss as all one word, I thought it would be much easier to trademark in the future. And that's how we come up with the name. Okay.
Good lessons. Okay, Dave, fill us in on what are your next steps?
I would like to license this to a company that produces lubrication products in all the different markets because it not only is used in the bicycle, motorcycle market, it also works in conveyor belt chains, farm equipment, things like that. And then we have a version made for lubricating wire, rope, and cables. And that, right now, historically, is a real messy job. You basically spray it with this foam, and it drips everywhere, and you got to paint it on with a brush to get it all around. My tool, you just put it over the top of the cable with a spray can, and you could do 100 feet of cable in 1 minute, and no drips, and it gets all around the cable. So a company that markets different types of lubricants would be ideal. If not, then I might be able to license to individual companies with each one of those markets. I mean, there's a lubrication company in the bike market, another one in the motorcycle market, completely different. I could possibly license to each one of those individually.
You are joining us at the National Hardware Show this year, so we will be absolutely bound and determined to show you off there and get everybody to take a look at your product. We are excited about that. And I want to thank you for being on with us today because this is a wonderful product. So for everybody out there who is listening in, if you would like to meet Dave, join us at an Inventor Roundtable meeting, sign up for the National Hardware Show, and please use one of our sponsors, Kicker Design and CAD Design, if you are in the early stages of getting a prototype done. So with that, we are going to take a break and pay some bills. Thank you so much to our Genesis Communication Network.
USA with Michael King. Do you have questions about your next home improvement project or home repairs? Now you can chat with verified home repair and home improvement experts in just minutes. Get the help you need by visiting HomeTalkUSA.com. One of the best resources for home improvement information around today. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com. And now, back to Invent America from the #1 home improvement radio program in the country. Home Talk USA with your host, the Cajun contractor Michael King, and his co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for being with us. Today we are talking to all of America's inventors, and our topic today is how to name a product, because like I said earlier, most of the inventors, by the time they get to this phase, they've spent a ton of money, and naming a product can be really expensive. So let's talk to our next guest. Dr. Andy Markelz is an associate professor in special education at Ball State University. And he and his wife, Lindsay, and their 2 children are innovators and entrepreneurs and enjoy coming up with the grand ideas and getting things out there. So, Andy, thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So your product is called Collar Keeper. Tell our audience what that is.
Sure. So like many products, it was born out of a daily frustration, and I wear collared shirts to work, and I was always frustrated with having to hang up collared shirts in the closet, especially having to button the top button. If you don't button that button when you put it on the hanger, they tend to fall off the hanger, or the collars kind of get flat and droopy. So I was frustrated with that and was wondering if there was a better kind of hanger available to hang collared shirts. And after some searching, online, we couldn't find anything. So we thought, well, what would it take to sort of invent a product that could hang collared shirts better? And that was the initial birth of Collar Keeper.
Well, and you were one of the winners of the Retailer's Choice Award at the National Hardware Show, 3 years ago, right?
Yep, we were, yeah.
Yeah, that was those awards are always really valuable because even though you're looking at licensing your product, being able to go back to a licensee and say, "Hey, we won the Retailer's Choice Award." That's a big deal and a big honor. So congratulations.
Thanks. Another boost for us is initially when we had the idea, there was a local big idea pitch contest that we entered into. My wife and I entered, and this was at the very beginning stages of just the concept, and we had made a couple sort of very rough prototypes, and we entered into this contest and we pitched the idea, and we ended up winning that, which kind of gave us the momentum to move forward. And I think people see the product or hear the idea, and it's just one of those like, oh, why hasn't anybody else thought of that or invented that before? So it's kind of fun to get recognition for it. Yeah.
But it is. And so how did you come up with the name? It's a wonderful name. And when I tell people, it's like, all right, what would someone Google to find you? It looks like you did exactly that. So how did you come up with it?
Yeah, names are tricky. We were thinking, what does it do? What's the product do? And we had several sort of like phrases, it holds collars, it's easy to hang. And then one thing that came up was that it keeps collars crisp. So we kind of started playing with the alliteration, and the Collar Keeper sounded like, had that great alliteration to it, describes what the product does, and so that's where we landed.
And an excellent choice because, the focus today where, somebody can pick a name of something, it's like nobody's going to Google that. They can't even spell it. So
that was another thing.
Good word.
We were also thinking about domain names. So we would come up with a product name, and then we search for like, well, is this domain name available? Is it, is it taken already? And we're not going to be able to kind of have that IP for it. So that was a consideration of Google searching and being able to find the product. Yep.
Yeah, I always tell people, when they're searching for a trademark, because you've touched on now the intellectual property about a trademark is the name of the product. And so when you first name it, you can use the TM symbol. And I always say it's kind of like the poor man's "this is mine" until you file for the registration. And so that's letting everyone know that you're claiming that is yours. But if you put it into a Google search, collarkeeper.com or whatever name you choose, .com, and you start looking and seeing what else is coming up, sometimes that helps you to say, no, we can't do that one because that's infringing on something else. Sometimes it's a matter of, the words could be being used on a completely different type of product in a completely different industry, but you still don't want to compete with that industry.
Exactly. Yeah, there was a product that was a dog chain collar, and so and the words were switched around a little differently. So it was completely different industry, but playing with the same words is that we had to try and keep that into consideration when landing on a final name. It's tricky. It's tricky to balance all
it certainly can be
priorities.
We had a gentleman years ago that came up with a product he wanted it called the Door Dog because it was a tool on how to hang a door. But if you Google door dog, you get 1 million hits on doggy doors.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so we got in the tagline or the byline with the .com, howtohangador.com. And now he would come up on the first page of a search.
Yep, very simple, plain, and straight to the point.
Exactly. So you just, you've got to be focused on what you're trying to accomplish and really play with the words until you find the right combination and then claim them because somebody else certainly will. Yeah.
We at one point, I remember we had a whiteboard up with several words and synonyms for those words, and then just trying to look at all that was out there on our whiteboard and kind of cross-reference them and connect them and see which ones flowed best, which ones had the best sound or ring to them. So, yeah, we had it up on a big whiteboard with several words that we're playing with.
So what's your next plan? What's your plan now? You told me your patent is issued. What is your plan on getting the product out there into our consumers' hands?
Yeah, so getting a utility patent issued was a big thing, and it took a very long time. I think the pandemic slowed things down and overloaded the patent office because it took a long time for our patent to be reviewed and go through the multiple rounds. So just about a month ago, it was finally approved. So with the utility patent in hand, we're interested in approaching companies now for a licensing deal. We're going to start being a little more proactive in attending, conferences and reaching out to companies because that's kind of where we think someone can take it and really bring it to market.
Yeah, absolutely. Good product for licensing. So if you are an inventor out there and you need some help getting a product manufactured, please check our sponsors, Kicker Design. And if you're in the early stages and you need some help with that very first prototype, CAD Design is with Scott Percy, is one of our other sponsors. We've had multiple inventors use both Scott and Kicker Design and been very happy with the results. If you need any other service providers, please let me know. I am happy to refer patent attorneys, search companies, anything you need, and sign up for the National Hardware Show. You can find more information about us at inventamerica.info or inventorlady.com. And thank you again to our Genesis Communication Network. So, Andy, thank you. Best of luck to you. You could always join us at the National Hardware Show. But thank you again for being here today.
Thanks, Rita. Have a great day.
Welcome back to Home Talk USA with Michael King. Do you have questions about your next home improvement project or home repairs? Now you can chat with verified home repair and home improvement experts in just minutes. Get the help you need by visiting HomeTalkUSA.com. One of the best resources for home improvement information around today. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com. And now, back to Invent America from the #1 home improvement radio program in the country. Home Talk USA with your host, the Cajun contractor Michael King, and his co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rita Crompton. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. Our next guest is Michael Miller. He is an industry expert in a variety of industries, but getting products from the inventor onto the shelf space is his area of expertise. So, Michael, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rita. I appreciate you having me on.
So, with all the products that you have touched over the years, I am sure that you have seen some that have had really good names and some where you just say, let us name that for you. Tell us a little bit about how important a good name is in the success of a product.
Well, I would say you have two different categories. One would be the inventor who's planning on licensing their product, and then the inventor who's planning on moving forward on their own to sell their product directly to the market or whatever. But in both cases, actually, the real true thing that they need to do is have a name that actually describes the product itself. A lot of these are very difficult to say and also don't really have anything to do with the product. And you have to think about both your consumers as well as if you're trying to license your product, that the name that you give it is what they're going to put on all of their files and all of their discussions with their other teammates. And if it's something really difficult and really doesn't describe the product, you're not going to get very far. And the same thing's going to go for your product even on the store shelf. If that name doesn't make any sense, people are just not going to understand what the product is to begin with to even think about buying it.
That's a good point. Our first guest was called Lube Toss because as you lubricate a chain and then you toss it away, exactly what the product is. And the second one was Collar Keeper because it keeps a shirt collar nice and tidy when it's hanging on the hanger. So again, exactly what it does. But what is your advice on naming? Is there a trick to it? Is there a process that you suggest to someone for naming a product?
Absolutely. So I would say from a trick perspective or really from a research perspective, look and see what the product names in that particular industry, what are they? What kind of vein do they follow in for those types of products? And it doesn't hurt to have your product basically follow that same kind of a vein of product names. You don't want to be too far out there, but you also want to stay kind of within the realm of what are those products. So it really is research. And the other thing you don't want to do is use a name that's already out there. That's going to just make it difficult for everybody, especially if you do start going through the process of trademarking and those types of things. You definitely don't want to be in violation of somebody else's trademark.
Right. I always tell people it's like, get a group of friends or family around a table, buy a 6-pack of beer or a bottle of wine, and then go through the process of saying, what would you Google to find this? And then what kind of adjectives make sense? And sometimes it is just, matching up the right words then. But, have some fun with it. Do some research on it. Don't infringe on somebody else. But, sometimes, other people, when they're looking at your product, can come up with some really good suggestions.
Absolutely. And in many cases, going in and talking to the store associates, whether it's, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace stores, a lot of times they have some really great ideas for you, both in regards to the product as well as product naming, and certainly what they've seen. And I would run those names by them. Does that make any sense to them? Because, those are the people eventually that would be leading customers to your product. And
absolutely. And another resource is if they attend the National Hardware Show, a lot of times they can start getting suggestions on names when they come at an early stage before they've actually done packaging. We get early stage inventors all the time that are there to do kind of reconnaissance on pricing and packaging and naming their products.
Absolutely. What are people calling it? and think about that.
So, we'll see you at the National Hardware Show, and I am sure that we will have you on before then. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Rita.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Stick around. We've got some announcements to make as we close out today's show. Thank you.
Home Talk USA with Michael King. Do you have questions about your next home improvement project or home repairs? Now you can chat with verified home repair and home improvement experts in just minutes. Get the help you need by visiting HomeTalkUSA.com. One of the best resources for home improvement information around today. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com. And now, back to Invent America from the #1 home improvement radio program in the country. Home Talk USA with your host, the Cajun contractor Michael King, and his co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you have an invention or you know an inventor who would like to join us on the show, please go to the website, inventamerica.info. Fill out the form. It drops right into my email box. If you have questions about the process, if you need a service provider, we have some really good ones, and give me a call, shoot me an email, and the text message works as well. So you can go to the website, inventorlady.com. All the information is there, inventamerica.info, and Home Talk USA. So also our sponsors, Kicker Design, is very good at helping those inventors through those different stages of manufacturer's prototype. CAD Design is going to help you develop that first prototype. So join us next week when we're going to talk about crowdfunding, the do's and don'ts. It's a tough road out there. So join us. You can find all the information you need on Invent America, because America invents.
Home Talk USA with Michael King is produced by Home Talk Media in association with King's Broadcasting Network and Genesis Communications Network. Broadcast and streamed live from the great state of Louisiana. Host and producer, the Cajun contractor, Michael King. Executive producer, Michael Mellinson. Affiliate and sponsor relations, Joe Spera. Comptroller, Sheila Gregoire. Assistant producer, Christian Bethencourt. Board operators provided by Genesis Communications Network. And I'm your announcer, Kevin McCarthy. Music includes King's Creole by Prolific Arts, Cajun Jam by StockMusic.com, and Zydeco City by Steve Rice. Home Talk USA with Michael King is sponsored by Bonai, pest solutions for your home, garden, and lawn. Decorators, take outdoor living beyond ordinary. Aztec Washer, innovative roofing solutions. Seal it right, seal it tight. Trimislab, replace rotten or missing wood with Trimislab expansion joint repair. Masonry Cosmetics, change the color of any porous masonry with proven masonry staining. Green Products Company, #1 in wood preservatives. Preserve, protect, and clean what you value, and most of all, make it last. Bond Products, manufacturers of InstaBind, the world's first do-it-yourself carpet binding solution. Deckrite, life is tough. Make your exterior flooring tougher. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Home Talk USA with Michael King. Until next time, visit us at HomeTalkUSA.com. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com.
Yay!